We're going to talk about GPT-3 and how it can help you extend the capabilities of your bot free. Chatbots are difficult for three reasons. One, they're hard to scale, they're hard to maintain, and they're often disconnected from the rest of your platform. So I'm going to deep dive on those 3 points. When I say they're hard to scale, I really mean chatbot intents are hard to scale. So we all know about the 80-20 rule. What we want to do when we start the chatbot is focusing on those 20% of possible causes, 20% of types of question that lead to 80% of the overall issue volume. Number two, and it's kind of like a big point, is I think chatbots are very hard to maintain. You create a chatbot based on where your solution is at one point, where is your platform, how's your product, how's your FAQ at one point. But then, you need to constantly update it. You want to update the verbiage, the language, maybe your design, your personality guidelines are changing. The last point is something that I've seen is that often the chatbot and the voice bot, they're often disconnected from the rest of the platform. It's really like a different system. It's another microservice. It's another thing. It's another team. And what's tough is like it's not aware of all the changing. By default, your chatbot is not aware of changes that are made in your organization. So let's see today, we have tons of businesses having bots, chatbot, voice bot, different conversation. Like, how do they solve these issues? Like, this is what I've seen. I've seen the do know nothing way. You build a great chatbot, step one. Step two, you do nothing, right? You wait a month, you wait 3 months, you wait 6 months, you wait 1 year, you don't invest. And then you get an old, rusty, malfunctioning chatbot, voice bot. Two is like this manual way, the Charlie Chaplin way that we see on the left. You just get daily, weekly, monthly requests. You update the pricing, and you have a new step in an FAQ. You need to update the chatbot. And then like some of the solutions that I've seen is kind of like the integrated way. So if you build a content management system, a CMS, and you build it and you connect it to your chatbot, but I would say here it's still like a lot of work to do this. The integration is not that easy, and you can't really connect everything to the chatbot. So the last way is kind of like the AI way, the GPT-3 way that I want to discuss with you. So it means generative pre-trained transformer 3. It's just like it's a language model. It uses deep learning. We don't have to go into too much details, but it uses deep learning, and it's really have an understanding of the language. You can produce human-like text, and it's so good that sometimes it's difficult to distinguish what's being generated by GPT-3 and what's being generated by a human. So that's kind of NLP task GPT-3 does: correcting grammar, generating examples of an abstract concept, critiquing your story, and what we're looking for here is expanding the capabilities of a bot. So let's look at a couple of examples here. You can find them online. I didn't create them. It's not from me. You can find them on Twitter. But here, first one is you just type text, natural language text, and it's able to output some JavaScript code for a layout generator. So here, large text in red that says "Welcome to my newsletter" and a blue button for subscribe. It's like, to me, it's like super impressive.